All right, welcome back. We are Game 2004. That's Game Engines 2 in the winter 2026 semester at Georgian. And it's week 4, part 2 of our broadcast and recording together. In this part, I'm going to talk about interior level design fundamentals. But I wanted to share with you a really cool resource that perhaps I shared with you already. If not, it's pretty cool. But I recommend taking a look at it. It's here, the Level Design book. It's kind of a free resource online. Not sure if you guys have seen this before, but it's really cool. I'm going to kind of see if I can take that link and put it on the chat for you guys instead of you having to figure it out yourself. Here it is. Oh, maybe without that. So this is pretty cool. I think it's a nice resource because what it does is it gives you a lot of really cool things. This is something that they've been working on, a group of developers. I think a lot of what they say here is good, a lot, like a ton of things that they've covered. They talk about what level design is. They have a lot of really great images and a lot of great kind of points that they're making here. And they talk about everything that we've been talking about and more, right? A lot of more detail than I've gone into. And I think it's an amazing kind of resource. Especially for these people who put it together for free. There's no cost to this at all. A little book online. And I think it's a really cool thing that they've put together here for you to read. So I think when you have time, I highly recommend taking a look at this resource. Again, it's just one tool that we can use in our toolbox. But I think it's a really great way of looking at things. So, again, some of it's more artsy. In some places, especially when you're doing sketches and that kind of stuff, so that may not be for you, but at least it gives you a structure, from how they kind of put together level design. There's also got a lot of links to things like GDC talks and a bunch of other stuff here that's in this resource. So I highly recommend it, and they go into a lot of details about how to create a level in pre-production. For combat, different layouts, blockout, scripting, a bunch of other stuff here that's done. And a lot of times, even though they don't necessarily say it's for Unreal Engine, I do feel that a lot of the stuff they do is in Unreal Engine. This is really cool. If we were going to brainstorm together and I was going to make a game with you guys, I might go through something like this where I kind of think about, like timelines. And here they've got a bunch of stuff here. It's not just, the level itself, but the whole game. And they talk about how to put things together, and it's kind of a really cool, kind of board. And this board is from The Last of Us, so that's something that they put together, and they kind of had, this up. I think it's up at a museum where they kind of talked about how to, how they put things together and their planning, which is pretty cool. And also not just planning, but also the seasons that are, part of the game and all that kind of stuff that they talk about, which is pretty cool. The combat design is optional, and I kind of think it is. It doesn't really make sense for what we're doing, but they talked about layout, and we're going to talk about how to create this top-down design today as well. So I highly recommend it. I think it's a great read. Back to what we're doing. So what I want to talk about now is kind of interior level design foundations, and really what we want to think about is we're making these enclosed spaces, right? And whenever we make enclosed spaces, we want to think about certain things that are different than exterior space. Exterior spaces, we talked about navigation, and we talked about landmarks, and we talked about sight lines. There's going to be sight lines here in kind of an interior level design as well, but the way the player moves through the level is really, really important. How they feel when they're moving through the level is important as well. And again, everything that you put in that level has to be intentional. I don't want random stuff. I would never want random stuff in a level. You know what I'm saying? It's something that you've got to think about why you're putting stuff in there. And I always go back to the Hitchcockian, Alfred Hitchcock. Maybe we've talked about this before. Maybe I've said it before in different ways, but if you ever watch any Alfred Hitchcock movies or shows, as an example, then anytime that director, an old director, and again, this is black and white a lot of time back in the day, and I go back to him because he's so interesting. The way he directed everything is you see something in those shows or your movies, and anything that they show is going to be part of that, is going to be part of the story. So example, you see a shotgun on a mantle above a fireplace. That shotgun is going to be shot. Okay. You see a door handle, and they focus the camera on a door handle. They're spending time, minutes of your watching time, spending time showing you something in the scene. There's a reason why they're showing you this. They're showing it because that is something that they're either going to foreshadow, they're showing you something that they're going to show you later on, or give you some hints of what's coming, as an example. And so everything is intentional in that room, that you're going to show. And that's why I think props also, when you're making your interior level design, they're also intentional. If there's rubble on the corner of a room, why? Like, why is there rubble? Is it because of disuse? Is it because, someone lived there? Like, what happened? Like, why is, does the level look the way it does, right? So I think it's important. So every doorway, every corridor, it's got to exist for a reason. So again, we compare exterior level design to interior level design. Exterior level design, large open spaces, there's emphasis on exploration and spatial freedom. When we go back into the internal things, you're enclosed, there's a controlled environment. When you're enclosed, you have constraints. Like example, when you're fighting outside, you can run away, right? Maybe inside sometimes you can't run away as easily. You have to, navigate through the level and stuff like that. The actual level itself may constrain the player to stop from being effective as in combat or whatever. Or maybe even movement, from one platform to another, or from one area of the level to another. There could be a lot of verticality in the level and so on that prevents players from just simply running away from a fight. Or if you're playing something like Dark Souls or Elden Ring, that level is blocked. You can't leave until the boss fight's done, kind of thing, which is a terrible thing that happens, by the way, but a terrible, wonderful thing in Elden Ring and in Bloodborne and all those kind of things where you cross a threshold and now you're fighting, kind of thing. So, so again, the idea is that interior levels require deliberate structure. It's not something that is random. So the first step I use is whenever I plan a dungeon, or if I plan a sci-fi game or whatever it is, I usually do a top-down design. So what I'd like you guys to do now, here's a bit of a challenge. I want you guys to try this out. There's a little bit of an online resource. One thing about online resources, I like them. I really do, and I'll dump this onto the chat as well. I really do like online resources, but they go away. Now, one thing about this is that Dungeon Scrawl here is powered by Roll20. So if you're someone who plays Dungeons and Dragons online with other people, Roll20 is a great resource. I'm not sure if you guys know about Roll20, but if I go to Roll20, it is a online tabletop, and it kind of supports games like Dungeons and Dragons, Pathfinder, and the stuff that they see here. Daggerheart, that's the newer one. And what you can do is connect with players online, like you can see here, and you can do things like roll dice in real time. You can also do that in Discord. When my group of friends, we would play Dungeons and Dragons together during COVID, we used Roll20. And but we also use Discord. I found that Roll20's video was pretty poor at the time. I know that it's improved a lot. A lot of the stuff that happens in Roll20 also includes things like character sheets and stuff, but mostly it's around the GM showing their map, and that kind of stuff. There's a lot of mapping tools in this app as well, and there's like plugins and things you can buy and all this kind of stuff to make your stuff wonderful. I'm not looking for you guys to make a role-playing game right now, but if you were, this might be a really cool resource to use, for you to sketch things out. But Dungeon Scrawl, powered by Roll20, is really cool. And if I create a new file, there are some options here on the left if you want to try them out that are really simple. So some presets, okay, now again for free. So if I was going to make something like some simple walls, then what you literally can do is select one of the presets, and hopefully you're trying this out with me, and then we draw a room. Okay, so this is kind of the thing that we can do. From there, you can draw a corridor, as an example, pretty simple, and you can see that it flows, kind of down here, and that kind of stuff. You can also use your tools to delete stuff or undo. Like, there's a lot of really cool control here that you can use as well. And this is the free use. You can also unlock a pro version if you really want to. But let's suppose I'm making like a little dungeon like this, as an example, and I have a bit of a corridor. I might draw the corridors first. That's not a bad way of doing things. So I might kind of draw them out like this. I want to draw out almost like a, kind of like a little place like this. Now, if I was going to take this, and if I'm going to use this later on, to kind of draw out my stuff, you have to be kind of deliberate again and why things are the way they are. So maybe this one, because deeper into the dungeon, if we enter here, and maybe there's going to be some kind of larger entryway or something like that over here, and by the way, you can move things around by using your middle mouse wheel and moving things around. Maybe this is going to be a bigger room, like a boss room or something like that. So you can expand it, like, you don't have to make it so it's like as small as you want. You can also change the size. Here you can use different shapes to draw stuff. So if I wanted to make it so that there's a different polygon that I'm using, this will support it. So you can kind of make a large room like this with a bit of so it's not a bit of a bottleneck that they had before. You can also add additional features like pillars and whatever here. I think this is a great little resource, and I think it's really good because if you and I were going to plot out a dungeon or some kind of interior level, I might start with this. I might start plotting it out just like this and talk about the stuff that it's going to be like, right? So maybe there's going to be a couple of rooms. Maybe I want to make a guard room, as an example, kind of down this corridor. Maybe in the middle here, I might have some kind of guardian or whatever. I don't know. But you can kind of modify, let's undo that. You can modify some of these things. I'm just going to go back to that, maybe back to this. So you can kind of modify these things to, to kind of, be what you want them to be. So I'm just going to kind of make it so a little bit more square. I like to be, each of these squares, I kind of try and map one-to-one with the squares in Unreal Engine or Unity or whatever. Each square, to me, is, in when we play Dungeons & Dragons, about 5 feet, right? But maybe from, a Unity perspective or Unreal Engine, since we're in Unreal Engine, it could be a meter. So 1 meter by 1 meter square could be that, right? So, because remember, we're working with centimeters in Unreal Engine. So I think scale and measurement is important to keep track of when we're doing this. And sometimes symmetry is good, and sometimes, you can make it asymmetrical. Like maybe there's going to be something at the end over here that you want to show, and this is going to be like maybe a secondary boss or something else that you're going to make a bit of room. Notice that there is a transition between the two things, and that would be a doorway. You can plot doorways here as well. There's a doorway tool right here at the bottom. And what you can do is like simply just draw the door like this. And so maybe you can also show if it's open or closed. There's lots of stuff that you can do here if you explore this little tool. Okay, so again, this is not the only tool. You can also draw it by hand. It would allow you guys to draw it by hand if you wanted to draw with tools like Photoshop, or if you want to use your own tools, that's fine. But I think this is kind of a quick sketch that you can do that allows you to do something really, really cool. And it doesn't take a lot, kind of to do that, right? So it's like, you can draw a room in the dimensions that you want, again, by using the tools that are provided, kind of thing. And I know one of the things that was fascinating to me the first time that I started playing D&D, as an example, and those kind of things was, was this idea that, I wanted to understand, like mapping to me was like it was part of the fantasy, that when we were doing it for the first time, because you could see it in your mind's eye, like what's going to be in here. It's part of the story. You're kind of having this, the stuff that you're doing, you're describing what's in that room, and then you're trying to think about, as an example, what is happening in that room. What I'm saying? Like why is the room the way it is, kind of thing. And I think this is pretty cool, where you can kind of sit there and say, okay, I'm doing this room, and there's like, this kind of monster in here or whatever. So again, you can be as wild and asymmetrical as you want. You don't have to make a symmetrical room. The other thing that you can also do here is you can make it so that part of it is more of a cavern. One thing I didn't mention for assignment 2 is that you could have areas in your level, your interior level, that is like mirroring kind of the exterior level, especially when you do transitions. Like let's say, for example, if you've ever played any kind of first person or third person perspective games where you go into a cavern or cave, or you go down a set of stairs and then it opens up into a level. That's perfectly fine. And those set of stairs or a cavernous area could be, rough hewn, like it's kind of carved out of things, but it's not like, dwarves didn't go and carve, designs on it necessarily, as an example. It doesn't have to be that detailed. It could be just like, like a rough cavern, and then it goes into like you might see a doorway that's like, kind of cut out of the cavern, and then it goes into your level. So there's lots of ways to do these things. I would love for me to give you something that is like that, but you know what, Griffin, I still think it's important for you to do it top down. If you're an artist, some people also do a vertical slice, so they actually draw out what it looks like from the side, for your, like maybe from two sides, to kind of give an idea of what this thing might look like. And I think that's okay to do. I don't know of a great resource that instantly creates like your block out stuff, like this. But I think it's important for you guys to have some kind of, a thing like this where you can kind of do a top down and you draw it out, and then from there you design it. So if I was going to design something like this, as an example, I can put like a door that's here too. It's a big door over here that maybe, I don't know, or maybe a couple of doors. Maybe there's a door here and there's a door here to get into this thing. And then this part here is part of, the dungeon, as an example. And this is pretty cool too. Like you can create paths, kind of thing, where you can kind of make it so it's more rough hewn, that kind of stuff. So there's this kind of thing, and there's lots of controls here on the right side to talk about how this is done, the grid pattern that you're using, if there's a shadow or not, and you can make it whatever you like to do. Again, I personally think that there's no, this is pro, there's no end to it, what you can do. I think there's some really cool tools that they have here as well. So you can add in a bunch of stuff. You can also export or download your map. Again, what I recommend is try and explore as much as you can and see what you can do. So here's your wall tool, and I think the wall tool does just walls. There we go. So you can see that that's pretty quick. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of control, and it gives you a really quick way of doing things, and this way you don't have to be limited to as an example to just drawing in Photoshop or drawing by hand. I think digital tools help us become a little bit cleaner in terms of representation. I do also think when you're doing this kind of thing, talk about what the room is. So for example, this is like, let's suppose I want to say this is like the elder boss, as an example, and whatever that means. At this time you can change the font type, you can make it so that it's whatever it's going to be, and then you can describe each of the rooms. I recommend you do it, as an example. I highly do recommend it. Like, talk about why it's here, and then this may require some iteration, may require some discussion between you and your partner, and why is this the way it is, kind of thing, right? So that's the first step. The first step is map it out. Okay, that's what I recommend you start doing. And then once you've mapped out this stuff, I want you to take some time. We're at 12:48. I want you to spend, let's say, the next 10 minutes or so creating your design for today, because we're going to actually do a level for today, and I want you to think about what it's going to look like. There should be some transition. Like, for example, in my little thing that I made like a little guard room here, an armory, and a supervisor, for this lesson, and there's an atrium. And then in the atrium, there's this massive doorway, maybe an open doorway that I can go through and transition from the exterior side of my level to the interior. There might be, if this thing was in some kind of like a castle or whatever, this is where some of the towers might be. Maybe the supervisor's room has verticality, and I might add that. I might kind of do a side drawing where I kind of show paths and everything else. Because remember, you can draw anything you like with tools. Just be careful, and it doesn't have to take you a million years to do it. For us, because the expectation is that none of you are real artists, you're technical artists, then you know, you have to allocate appropriate time. Okay. Now, if you are an artist and if you've got natural talent and all that kind of stuff, and you really want to spend more time doing this, if you got the time, and if it feeds you, like, you know, feed your soul, that kind of stuff, and that's what you love to do it, right? It's only going to make you stronger for you to think about, you know, drawing things from the side and from, you know, different angles and all that stuff. I think it's great, and it gives you really a good sense of what you're doing. Remember, when we're creating our games, my friends, we don't really know what they are. We don't know what the game is until, you know, get closer and closer to understanding it, and that happens over time, because, you know, in the first bit, you kind of understand what the game is you're making, and then you get closer and closer to understanding as we continue the development process, right? So you understand, you and all the people in your team might have an agreement about what this thing is. In the beginning, you're probably very far away. Everyone has some different concept. It's kind of pie in the sky. But we start here at pre-production, where before we actually produce anything, we start drawing. We start thinking about stuff. And as we go closer and closer, then we build our level. So let's take 10 minutes, I would say. So we're sitting at 12:50. Let's take 10 minutes to draw something out. And maybe we can use that to sketch out what we're going to be doing with our modular assets. Okay, so let's take a 10-minute break. I'm going to take a 10-minute break. You guys can do a little bit of drawing. And then when we come back, we're going to talk about some how to build, you know, basically a blocking workout, you know, kind of, you know, workflow for interior levels we'll talk about. Okay? So we'll take a short break.